And we are finally live for episode 63 of Trek Live. If you guys are new to Trek Live, it's a dedicated show where Bill and I just talk about Star Trek Live. So, that being said, how you doing this morning, Bill?
Doing well. Happy to be here. We were off last week. Both of us were kind of traveling. I was on vacation. You were at a wedding. So cool to be back. We have a neat topic this week, a little bit of a different setup, I guess. We have Star Trek shots is going to be our topic, shots and images. So we're going to be putting visuals up on the screen. It's going to be a little different for those who listen to us.
Yes.
Maybe in the car or something. Just so we'll do our best to maybe like kind of describe the shot that we're talking about. If you're listening to us that way, this is definitely an episode that's best watched visually.
Yes. Yep. Just popped it in chat. Just make sure the audio levels are good. Yeah, I'm super excited for this topic. We might go a little bit deeper into at least my fandom, because some of these shots are kind of really influential in my life and in influencing what I went to, my career and everything. So yeah, it should be fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's what makes this a good topic. I think if anything we can do can like kind of poke holes in like why we love Star Trek. I think that's there's some of the coolest topics that that we can do. Yep.
Yes.
So real quick before we get right into it, have you watched any Trek recently?
Yes, I have. I gotta go check and see what's the last episode I watched. Was The Wounded? No. Galaxy's Child.
Galaxy's Child made some
was the last episode that I watched. I really liked it because I really like Geordi, and I really like the engineering side of things.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. It's a very engineering episode.
I don't know if I would have reacted the same way the characters react in that episode. It was a little creepy to me. But yeah, it was all right episode.
Yeah, the one of my favorite podcasts, Mission Log, they go through every episode kind of in depth and really dissect and analyze deeply each episode individually. And I remember those two guys watching Galaxy's Child and talking about the creepy factor, and that's one of the things that is maybe a tough hurdle to get over in that episode. I think it's good. I think all the engineering stuff's really cool in it, and I think LeVar Burton's really good. But some of it's pretty cringeworthy.
Yes.
If you put yourself in Geordi's shoes, it's pretty awful.
Yep.
Kind of imagining yourself dealing with that. So, and I think, yeah, it's a tough one. It's good, but it's got some challenging elements too. But I think was the episode right before that, First Contact? Yes, I love that episode. That's one of my favorites in The Next Generation. I think that's one of the few episodes that kind of puts you. It's pretty much told from the perspective of the alien culture that they're kind of visiting. You're seeing it through their eyes and seeing that they're not really ready yet to live life the way that the Federation does, and they're not there yet. And it kind of is a one of the better like Prime Directive episodes. Why you can't just showing why it's a bad idea to just show up and not maybe ease your way in and wait for the right opportunity to introduce yourself as somebody from another world. Not every society is ready for it yet. And yeah, there's some really aspirational stuff. I love the female scientist. I can't remember her name, but the actress is awesome. Where she's ready, but the society's not. She's ready to go and wants to leave and she's like a Star Trek fan. Like people who love Star Trek had that happen, and it happened the way Star Trek, hopes it will happen. We're going to be all ready for it, I think.
Yeah.
But some of us might not be, and I love that. There's an episode of Star Trek that kind of explores that idea. So that's a great episode that I'm a big fan of.
Yep. How's your rewatch going?
Pretty good. still kind of taking a little bit slow. I'm hoping to finish season 1 of TOS this weekend. Hopefully today. I have like 5 episodes left. I watched This Side of Paradise yesterday, which is like the first like Spock emotional episode with spores and on the planet with his ex-girlfriend, played by Jill Ireland, who's really, really good in it too. That's a really good episode in my mind. It's kind of underrated. It's got a lot of good humor in it. It's emotional. Like it's got some dramatic punch to it. It's really good for Kirk, especially in like the last 10 or 15 minutes when he's kind of like the last one to, not be overtaken by the spores and has to fight his way back from it, and kind of discovers the key to beating them. And Nimoy is obviously, incredible in it, adding a lot of new layers to Spock, getting to see his emotional side and the stuff that's kind of bellowing underneath the hard exterior that we're used to seeing. So that's kind of maybe a little bit of an underappreciated. I think he gets a lot of good talk out there. I think a lot of people like it, but I think in the back half of season 1, when you're kind of surrounded by Space Seed and the Devil in the Dark and the City on the Edge of Forever and like Errand of Mercy, episodes like that, Arena,
heavy hitter.
This Side of Paradise, gets a little bit maybe pushed down a little bit, and I think it's warranting of that status. Maybe not quite to the same level as like City on the Edge and Devil in the Dark, but it's in my upper echelon of TOS episodes for sure. But yeah, I have a lot of good ones coming up. I have Devil in the Dark coming up hopefully today, and City on the Edge Forever coming up today. Errand of Mercy today. So looking forward to getting them in and wrapping up season 1.
Awesome.
Jordan's last episode is in the chat. How you doing? I saw Jordan this weekend in Orlando. Again, it's becoming like a little new tradition. Pretty much every time I go, I get to run into him, which is really cool. Watch Preemptive Strike, which is the second to last episode of TNG, right before All Good Things. Ro Laren kind of becoming Rogue again and going off the Maquis. Definitely a good episode. Yep. So, anybody else out there who wants to share their last episode, feel free. Last thing you watched, we're always game to hear that, what you thought of it. But do you want to talk a little bit about how we're going to structure this sort of topic of the week? We're going to go through our favorite shots and images, but how are we going to logistically kind of do this?
Yeah, so Bill and I just kind of compiled a bunch of different shots that we're going to go through. So this might be a longer episode because we have a bunch of awesome shots and images to go through and kind of dissect. We're going to go through Bill's pick first, and I'll just spoiler alert. He picked some that I picked also, so we're going to kind of sprinkle those in, and then we'll finish up with mine. And then we'll finish up the show like we usually do. So it should be a good time.
Looking forward to it.
I will say, though, that just it being a favorites, not best, there is a lot of ship shots and so just forewarned.
Yes, that's one thing that we spent a lot of time, I think, kind of talking about prepping for this. Is do we include like ship shots and visual effects stuff? Or is this like pure like director of photography, cinematography kind of stuff? And I think we kind of decided to do both. Like that's why I try to use like shots and images. Like it's kind of both. It's maybe images is the better way to put it. Some of it's visual effects, some of it's traditional photography. But we're gonna have them both here, and I think that's the right way to do
it. Also, Jordan saying change of background. Yes, upgraded quarters. I also will forewarn you guys. I live very close to like a bigger airport, and there's an air show going on right now. So I apologize in advance for any flyovers or anything during the stream. So, but that's nature of the beast. So, yeah.
Pretty cool.
Yep.
All right. So whenever you're ready, we'll throw up our first. I guess my first pick. We're gonna give me first. So.
Yep. Let's see if I can.
Yeah, just let us know if you can hear us okay in the chat. If there's any kind of issue, definitely don't hesitate to say so, and we'll get it taken care of. But I see the first shot is on the screen, nice and big. Definitely like that. This is a shot from Enterprise Season 3, Episode 5, Impulse. I think it's pretty rare to see our like hero ships kind of not overpowering the frame and being the coolest, biggest thing in the frame. And this shot really, I remember watching this episode live when it was airing, and this shot is something that I've kind of never forgot. It made an indelible impression on me the first time I saw it. It reminded me a lot, and it still reminds me a lot of the stuff that we see in the motion picture, which is another kind of example of there are a lot of shots in the motion picture where you see like a little teeny tiny Enterprise flying through V'ger, dwarfed by all the big stuff happening in that cloud. And this is, I think, one of the only other examples that you kind of see that the ship teeny tiny flying into something imposing and threatening. They're getting ready to fly or trying to get into like this chaotic asteroid field that's all whacked out and crazy because of all the anomalies in the expanse. And there's a Vulcan ship in there that's badly damaged, and they're trying to rescue, hopefully, somebody off that ship, and all kinds of shenanigans ensue from there. But this is one of our ship shots for today that we're gonna talk about, and it's definitely one of my all-time favorite visual images from Enterprise and from Star Trek in general.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I love this shot because it kind of embodies the premise of the show. You kind of talked about it, but it just feels like they're out in this huge, vast space alone. So that's why I love the shot.
That's a really good point. It does take advantage of the premise of the show, and especially the premise of the season. Enterprise as a whole is definitely a show that leans heavily on, kind of like Voyager does, in a different sort of way, where the ship's out there on their own, and they don't have a whole lot of help, and help's not always necessarily right around the corner. But in season 3, it's certainly exaggerated. They're in this certainly unexplored and threatening area of space where they're definitely in a dangerous situation. And I think this shot really drives that point home, that they're alone and not necessarily in a good situation.
Yeah,
and I think this is a foreboding shot this is a horror episode for those who may not be familiar with like episode titles. This is the Vulcan zombie episode that is kind of a love it hate it kind of thing. I know a lot of people really are not into it, but I'm a fan of it. I think it's kind of cool and fun and pretty rock solid episode. But this is a definite like foreshadowing image that they're going to run into some problems ahead.
Yeah. I also love the shot because I feel like, especially when ship shots, it's much closer, and seeing all the details and how big it is and how fast the ship is. But this shot is, to me, a lot different. It's way far, huge shot. So that's why I like it also.
Yep, couldn't agree more. All right, I think we're going to move on to the next one, which is going to be another. All these are all-time favorites, but this is a totally different kind of shot. This is not a visual effects ship shot of any kind. This is a first time we see Captain Kirk, Admiral Kirk, in the motion picture. This is our introduction or reintroduction to the iconic lead character from the original series in movie form. And I just love it. I think it's a cool, like, different, unexpected way to see him. The first time you see him isn't, sitting in the captain's chair or, doing anything heroic. You just see a little image of his face through, porthole. I think it was, this shot is sort of maybe a little incomplete without the great Jerry Goldsmith score and all the sweeping stuff that's happening before it. We get all these cool shots of Starfleet headquarters, which we had never seen through TOS. Like, if you're putting yourself in 1979 watching the motion picture, which I wasn't alive for, but if you tried it, put yourself in those shoes. If the only thing you've ever really seen is TOS and the animated series, you never saw Earth, really, 23rd century Earth on screen. And right before you see Kirk here, you've gotten some looks at Earth in the 23rd century and Starfleet headquarters for the first time. And, you have the big, new, at the time, Jerry Goldsmith Star Trek theme blasting. over top of all this, and little shuttlecraft pulls up, and you zoom in and you see Captain Kirk, Admiral Kirk's face through the window, and that's your kind of, slam back into, this is Star Trek on a big screen, kind of feeling. And this is a shot that's always stuck with me too. Every time I watch the movie, I get a little wow factor when this happens in the movie, and that's why I picked it. What do you think? Is this a shot that you remember from the first time you saw the movie? Is it something that...
It's not a shot that I remember, but looking at it, I love the composition. It's so simple, and it's so, there's not going on. It's, straightforward. It's, right. And I know that Star Trek has a lot of shots of where it's just, talking heads. I just think this is a cool shot of where you don't need any, like you said, you don't, with the score and everything, you don't need words or anything. You can just, tell that Kirk is a man on a mission. So
he is, Yep. And one of the cool things about the motion picture, he looks older than he does in TOS, but he still looks good. Like he's clearly James T. Kirk, and he's James T. Kirk, maybe on a different side of his prime than he was in TOS, but he's still kind of in his prime. I think in this image, and I think that's driven home, the first time you see him in that awesome Admiral uniform. I love that, gray and white Admiral's uniform that you only see in this movie, really.
Yeah.
Cool. Yep. Okay. So the next one is going to be kind of a mixture. There's a little visual effect element going on here, and some traditional stuff as well. This is a shot from Star Trek Voyager's 5th season episode Gravity. It is fairly simple. We don't get a lot of location stuff in Star Trek. There's a good bit of it in the original series, but I think in the later shows it becomes a little more rare. Maybe a couple of times a season you see them go outside, and not just on a standard kind of soundstage or a cave like I'm going to talk about in a little bit for another one of these shots. This is one of the cool times that the crew is or the away team, I guess, is stuck in an exterior location. There's some really cool cinematography throughout this episode to kind of make the planet. I guess they use like you would know better than I, Dan, as a film school student, but this is an episode that I think they kind of rely heavily on, like, filters, I guess would be the right way to put it, on the planet. Photography, it's got a kind of a washed out, very hot looking vibe to it on all the planet exteriors. Certainly like a desert setting, but Vasquez Rocks, I believe, is where they shot this.
Yeah,
it's like a legendary Star Trek location.
Yeah, Arena and a bunch of other.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
But I love the subtle little visual effect with the sort of sinkhole that they fell into to get to this planet that operates on a different time, on a different timeline. I guess their time moves faster than it does on Voyager. And this is, after a pretty heated conversation between Tuvok and Tom Paris about, they're there with this female alien that's been there for a long time, and the character's name's Nas, I believe, and she's developing feelings for Tuvok, and Tuvok is being Tuvok and not really being receptive, and Tom Paris is trying to get through to him, and they're having pretty, like I said, heated and emotional conversation, at least from Tom Paris's side of things, and they're sort of interrupted by seeing the sinkhole open up, and maybe a little hope that maybe a rescue isn't too far around the corner. But I love the composition of it. I love, the distance from the actors and getting to see sort of the skyline. And it's a unique shot from my standpoint, just because of the infrequency of being outside in the later series, and this being one that sort of really takes advantage of that location photography very well.
Yeah. This was one of my picks also. So we had an overlap.
Cool.
Yeah, I love the shot because it's very balanced. You have the rocks taking up half the shot, but you also have this beautiful shot of the skyline and the visual effects, and it's not too busy too.
Exactly.
You see the most important element of the shot is obviously Tuvok, and then also just I think it's just well balanced in that way. Um, I picked this one because it also influenced one of my projects in school.
Wow.
I did something similar where I put um, a visual effects element in the sky. My shot did not look as good as this, um, but yeah, that's why it made my list because it influenced a project of mine and also just the composition in general is awesome. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Didn't know that. That's really cool.
yeah,
I learned something new today
yeah.
about you. That's really cool.
Mhm.
We did not talk about these picks ahead of time. I did send them to you, so you knew what mine were going to be. I don't know what yours are, so that you could kind of do all the producer prep work on the back end. But I didn't know that this was a shot that had kind of made an impact on you.
Yeah.
So really glad I picked it, and
Yep.
kind of we're on the same wavelength there. Jordan wants to see your project.
Yeah, I have a lot of work that has been influenced by Star Trek, but not necessarily worthy of showing you guys. Maybe someday. So, yep.
Patience, Jordan. That's something that we're gonna have to work on, Dan, to build his self-esteem and confidence to share. But yeah, whenever you're ready, Dan, we definitely. I would like to see it too. That's pretty cool. Anything that you've done that's been influenced by Trek is of interest to me. Yeah. Cool. The next one for me is kind of harkening back to the first one. It's a visual effects shot, pure and simple ship shot, but definitely I think pretty iconic. It is Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan. It's the Enterprise and the Reliant, and the Mutara Nebula. I think this is pretty indisputable. There's the only I think conversation to have here is which shot to pick. There's quite a few really cool, iconic images from this sequence in Star Trek II. I chose this one. I love the composition of this. I love the Enterprise from that particular angle. That's sort of to the side, but ship pointing forward. I think the ship is especially sexy from that angle. I love the Reliant damaged and on fire in the foreground there. The colors of the Mutara Nebula are perfect. It's just quintessential Star Trek image. It's also, I think in Star Trek 3, it's the exact same shot. It's instead of the Reliant and instead of the Mutara Nebula, it's the Starfield and the Bird of Prey. There's a shot of the Enterprise and the Bird of Prey kind of going nose to nose in orbit of the Genesis planet. That I think, I can't say with 100% certainty, is essentially this shot of the Enterprise with just the Bird of Prey instead of the Reliant in that spot. So that tells me, if that's true, that ILM and Nimoy were also fans of this shot. So that makes me even more confident that this is a good choice. That this is a good choice. But yeah, this is, I don't have a whole lot to say about it other than it's just gorgeous and visually pleasing, and it makes the Enterprise, look its best.
Yeah.
It's just a top of the line, in my mind, Star Trek ship shot.
Yeah.
Jordan's saying that he agrees that the 3/4 angle is best for the refit, and he enjoys how they grimmed up the E. The Enterprise looks the part of a trainee ship. Yeah, it kind of looks beat up and old by this point, and I agree.
Yeah.
What do you think, Dan? Is this
I agree. You mentioned Industrial Light and Magic. Great shot. I love that there's that they. I think this is a practical effect. I love that you can see the reds and the purples on the actual ships from the nebula. I just love that effect. I just think it's a beautiful shot. Kind of upset that I didn't pick it, but no, it's a great shot. I love that. I love the nebula effect in the background, but also it reflecting onto the ships. I just feel that it adds like a sense of realism to the shot. So I just love it.
Yeah. This is definitely, I think, a good opportunity to shout out Trek Core. This is where at least all of my shots pretty much came from, and I spent a long time perusing Trek Core in this section of the Wrath of Khan, trying to pick, the specific image that I wanted to highlight, because, like I said, there there are about at least a half a dozen that I like looked at and was like, is that the one? Just different angles of the Enterprise and with the Reliant either in frame, some not actually. Some were just shots of the Enterprise in the nebula. But yeah, that section of the Wrath of Khan is some of the best Star Trek of all time, if you ask me. And I knew when we talked about this topic that something from this part of the movie was going to be something I was going to want to talk about. So,
yep.
Okay. We have another ship shot coming up. Different era, much newer sort of shot. This is certainly my favorite shot from Star Trek Discovery so far. Anybody who I've talked to about Discovery, I've probably sent this shot 25 times over the last handful of months.
Bill's gonna get tattooed on.
Yeah. This was my desktop wallpaper for quite a while. Yeah, I just love this image. I love the Klingon ship. Looks very imposing. Seeing it from their angle and seeing the Discovery kind of dwarfed in the distance by this giant Klingon ship. Yeah, Adam can confirm. I've sent it to him a few times. Anybody I know that's a Star Trek fan, I've probably sent this shot to.
Yeah.
Oh my god, I love this. Yeah, it's just beautifully composed. The planet and the moon in the distance, the Discovery being kind of, like I said, dwarfed in the center of the frame. But the slow, I love how long the shot is too. It's got to be like 12 seconds of like a slow pullback going to the back of the Klingon ship, slowly decloaking with the cool green effect. I love the score over top of it. It's another one kind of like that motion picture shot. That the whole production element, the sound effects, the score, I think all kind of combined to make this kind of an epic moment. And probably my favorite little like beat in Discovery's first season. I've seen it an embarrassingly large number of times. I've gone back and just kind of watched that shot.
Yeah.
What do you think? Is this something that stood out to you when you watched this episode for the first time?
Yes, it definitely stood out. It's like a jaw-dropping moment. Discovery is no short of great cinematic shots. That's not in question. This, to me, is almost like top 5, maybe Trek shots, all-time ship shots. I love this shot. I think,
I
mean, you hit the nail on the head with, balance with the planets. It also just, represents the menacing, attitude the Klingons have. And, yeah, I just love it.
I think it's all been building to this point too in the show. Like we've spent a lot of time, obviously, on the Discovery with the main characters, but we spent a lot of time on that Klingon ship too. From the pilot onward, and we know who's on that Klingon ship, and we know what's been going on it. So we spent the last kind of 8 hours waiting for this sort of confrontation to come between these two ships that we've been following for the last 8 or 9 hours. Yeah, on all levels, I just think it's a critical moment in that point of the season. It's a critical moment for the show as a whole, and it's definitely an image I'm not going to forget anytime soon. I agree with you. It would be, if I was going to do just like top 5 ship shots, it would definitely factor into that list, and it'd be pretty high on that list. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
The next one is kind of a combination, like that gravity shot from Star Trek Voyager. This is a difficult shot to convey in a single image because it's a long tracking shot. It's the first image really from Star Trek First Contact. It's the long pullback from Picard's eye, through the Borg cube. You see Picard it's basically being assimilated, I guess, or beginning the process being assimilated, and they pull all the way back to you can't even see Picard anymore. That's an image I've never forgotten since I saw it on the big screen in '96 as a little kid. Yeah, it's like I said, it's difficult to talk about without having like
Yeah.
the impact of the moving shot. It's not so much this particular image as the cumulative effect of the full, 20 seconds or so it takes to pull back from Picard's eye to sort of the full cube at a distance, or that section of the cube, I guess. What about you? Is this a shot that made an impact on you? Is this something that you think of?
It's a great shot. I love it's Picard in a Borg alcove. I think it's really again, I keep coming back to this, really balanced. I like it because it's the whole shot kind of as as it pulls back. It's all Borg green and Borg technology, but then I like it because his uniform just pops on the shot, and you just
agreed.
It's you see it and you think of Picard and the importance and the history of this. So yeah, I love because it just pops against the background.
From a story standpoint, it's also really kind of critical to do this too, because it's a sequel to an episode. Really, First Contact is, especially from Picard's standpoint. Like what you're seeing Picard deal with is a direct reaction to Best of Both Worlds. Which, so as an audience watching this movie, you kind of need some kind of context about where this is all coming from for Picard. What you're about to see in the movie. So I think it's the perfect way to start this movie. I think they needed to do something to telegraph to the audience that there's a history here. Picard is dealing with a lot of trauma from his interactions with Borg. There's a lot of damage been done, and this opening, not just this opening shot, but like I said, they pull back and they show you Picard kind of enveloped by the Borg, as one person in this grand, huge collective. But after that, they have this kind of montage of him being assimilated, and so it's the perfect way to start that movie. It's one of the reasons that movie is a pretty rousing success, I think, is that it's a kind of perfectly set up, kind of like Wrath of Khan is, as a sequel to an episode that. When you do a feature film like that, you can't guarantee that everybody who sits down to watch that movie has seen The Best of Both Worlds or had seen Spacey. So the movie's got to do some work to fill in anybody who's walking into that movie without all the context, like somebody you or I would do. If this was 1996 and First Contact was getting ready to come out, and we were who we are now, we would go into that movie knowing, like, back of our hand what happened to Picard with the Borg. But like if you were taking your wife, she might not, so she's going to need something like this to give her the context she needs to go into the rest of the movie. So this is an effective shot on all kinds of levels. It's visually striking and memorable, but it tells a story too, which is what it's all about. So okay, next one is, I imagine there's definitely, I think, some visual effect element going on here, but I don't really think of it as a visual effect. It's a shot from the very end of Family in TNG, the sort of character only concerned, just quiet character episode following up Best of Both Worlds. This is Picard's nephew, who is sort of aspirational, wants to join Starfleet, wants to go explore, wants to follow Picard's footsteps, which is a point of contention for Picard and his brother and his sister-in-law. They are very traditional. Picard's brother and sister-in-law people. They're not, Starfleet people. They're just living their life on Earth, doing their thing. And I think they have some resentment that Rene, their son, wants to maybe following Picard's footsteps, Jean-Luc's footsteps, as opposed to theirs. And this is, this is obviously like telegraphing that he's a young kid, aspirational, dreaming of going to the stars and following Picard as the Enterprise is leaving. And I think the reason this shot works for me is as a young kid who grew up in Star Trek, I was kind of doing the same thing, like sitting around thinking about this stuff all the time. I can relate to where Rene was at that time. And I think it spoke to a lot of people in that same way. A lot of whether you're a kid or an adult and you think about Star Trek and it means something to you in that kind of way. I think this sort of taps into those aspirational, I wish we could just go out there kind of feeling that I think Star Trek gives a lot of us.
Yeah.
So, what do you think? Anything stand out to you?
I love this shot because to me it's different than the normal shots that we usually see in Star Trek.
Yeah,
it's not on
absolutely.
a ship. It's not on an alien planet. It's different than what we normally see. And I also love that this is a visual effect shot. Set extensions, I feel like they're they don't get a lot of love, especially when visual effects wise. Set extensions are definitely cool and just kind of add to the universe and add to the shot.
Yeah.
So yeah, I love the shot. I think it's beautifully lit. It's very dramatic and yeah, it's a great shot.
Yeah, I think what you just said about it being different than a lot of the stuff that we're kind of used to seeing. It's not a ship shot. It's not the crew in like heroic poses on the bridge or anything like that. It's pretty traditional, old school, just composition. I like the lighting of it. It's different is probably what makes it stand out in my memory. It's a unique animal in Star Trek images, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay. Next up, we have a Deep Space Nine shot. This is the one I was kind of alluding to earlier. We're talking about location photography, and the reason that that always pops so much to me is because we spend a lot of time, especially in the modern shows, the 90s era shows, I guess now, in these cave sets, which get a lot of play from TNG all the way through Enterprise. There's a lot of caves. And I love how this is from third season episode, Improbable Cause, sort of a two-parter with Garak and Odo trying to unpack a mystery involving the Romulans and the Dominion and the Cardassians and all this stuff happening. Great episode, but I love this moment where Avery Brooks, who actually directed this episode, finds a way to make these caves look different and take a completely different approach with photographing kind of the same set that we see 100,000 times over the course of all these shows. I love the lighting of it. I love the use of that overhead cavern, giving it a totally different dynamic. It's definitely a scene that I've never really forgotten because it's visually different than anything we're kind of used to seeing. But similar at the same time, because like I said, we spend so much time in these cave sets over the course of all those shows.
Yeah.
So this is I think because of the fact that Avery Brooks directed it, and Avery Brooks is the one who kind of uniquely found this different way of shooting this set. It's always kind of stood out in my head, and it's a memorable one for me.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a great shot. It's very mysterious. I think they kind of use this type of shot in mysteries and detective shows and horror movies. Where it's a reveal kind of behind the character, and I just love those type of shots. So I think it's a great shot.
Yeah, it's very it fits in the episode. The episode, like I said, especially the first part of it, is very much a mystery. Odo's trying to unpack what's going on with these different governments and conspiracy stuff happening. You can't figure out what Garak's even up to or what he's trying to figure out. Garak's kind of doing his own thing, and this is the shot that really screams mystery to me.
Yeah.
It's like film noir kind of stuff as well. This mysterious figure who doesn't want to be seen but wants to be heard. In the distance, giving the information he wants to give. So this is one that is unique in my mind for all the reasons I laid out, and this is one that really quickly came to mind for me. I didn't have to dig a lot for this. This is when we talked about favorite shots. To be honest, this is one of the first 3 or 4 that popped into my head.
Mm-hmm.
This has always been a favorite of mine. It's one of my favorite Deep Space Nine episodes, so maybe that's part of why it's on the forefront of my mind. It comes from a strong episode,
Mm-hmm.
but yeah, definitely a good one in my mind. The next one is definitely an image that I'm sure people are familiar with. It's a little controversial, maybe because people have story questions about where the ship was built and all that stuff that I don't really care so much about. But this is certainly an iconic now, sort of maybe legendary image from Star Trek 2009. It's Kirk watching the Enterprise being built, kind of deciding his future. It's something that I remember seeing on the big screen. Again, I keep saying that for the movies that I saw on the big screen, that I have never forgotten. I think it's from a visual effects standpoint, it's awesome. It's bigger than life and something that we've never seen before in Star Trek. I totally get that the Enterprise, in most people's minds, was built in space. That's why they're space dock and fly. Fine, I get all that.
Yeah.
But from a purely visual standpoint, this is gorgeous to me. It's perfectly led up to, with Kirk kind of struggling with what kind of person he's going to be, and which way in life he's going to take, and the Enterprise kind of gives him the clarity he needs to decide, which way he's going to go. And yeah, it's another one that I've mentioned a couple of times is critical to the story. It's a major turning point in the movie. It's setting the story on the track it's going to go. It's kind of like First Contact's shot did, and it's pretty perfectly composed, I think. And it's a cool combination of visual effects and practical stuff, I guess.
Yep.
But you can certainly speak more to that than me. Technical aspects of it,
yep.
I guess. What do you think?
I love this shot. Absolutely love this shot. This is one of my probably, again, top 5 shots ever in Star Trek. This was also one of my picks. I love this shot because obviously it's a great shot. It's well composed. Love the silhouette of Kirk. But what I draw from it is Kirk. This isn't the Kirk we know. His character, like the ship, is still under construction, still being built, and I think it's a perfect shot. And I also, I'm a sucker for ships, in dry dock or being built. So, yeah, I love this shot.
I love the way you just put that. Kirk is as much under construction as the Enterprise is.
Yep.
And that's really well put. I wouldn't have ever thought of that. And yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the better moments of modern Trek. Like, if you're talking between Discovery and the Kelvin movies and stuff, like the new Star Trek, this is one of the more memorable images that I think has come out of that era, kind of in right now so far. So yeah, I think it's a great movie moment in general. Remove yourself a little bit from Star Trek as a whole and just think of it as a big motion picture from that year. I think it's just kind of a classic movie moment on its own level. But it's a big Star Trek moment too.
Yeah.
So
yes,
good on all levels. And my next one is my last one. Okay. We're gonna save the last one for me.
Yeah.
Yep.
Save that last shot for the end. It's a great shot. It's gonna be a fun topic.
Okay.
But we're gonna be moving into kind of my last few picks. This shot is a shot of Picard. We kind of talked about it when we covered the episode a few episodes back.
I love it.
I love the shot because it was similar to that Kirk shot in the motion picture, but it also has context, and I think you get the kind of the empty. You can just see the empty feeling in Picard, what he had to sacrifice for Earth, I guess. So I think it's a great shot, and it's one that when I thought of great shots, I thought of this. So that's why I wanted to include it in my picks. I love the texture, kind of the outside of the ship. We don't usually see that shot a lot, and the reflection. It's just a great shot.
Couldn't agree more.
Yep.
This is from the end of Best of Both Worlds, Part 2. We did talk about it. We did a whole episode on the Best of Both Worlds and how it holds up and if it deserves all the pomp and circumstance surrounding it as like all-time great Star Trek. And we concluded it was, and we did spend a good little chunk of time at the end of it talking about this last shot and for all the reasons you just kind of laid out. And you're right. It's from a storytelling. The storytelling side of things, it tells you all you need to know about Picard is not okay. He's going to try to pretend he is, and he's going to try to move on, but there's a lot of damage to unpack, and it leads into First Contact years later. And it is visually different than most stuff that we ever get. We don't usually see this angle of, I don't think we ever see this again, do we? Like,
I don't think so.
Like out the window from the outside of the ship. I think it was ingenious. Really, really cool choice. So really, really good pick. I totally agree, and I'm embarrassed that I didn't pick it myself.
Yes. So moving on to my next pick. I mentioned ships and dry dock, and this shot comes from the motion picture. It's hard to pick one shot because there's just so many great shots. But it's to me, I don't know, it's top 3, I guess. I know I keep saying top, but there's so many great shots and beauty shots and the practical effects, and I just love this shot. And to me, it's an iconic ship shot to me. So that's why I picked it.
Definitely. Yeah. And I'm glad you picked something here because my favorite thing growing up, like as a young kid, like I think maybe the first thing that really made an impact on me as a young, like not even in kindergarten yet, Star Trek fan, was like this sequence in the motion picture. This sequence, like leaving dry dock and Kirk flying up to the ship, like the music, the visuals, all that stuff. As like a 3-year-old, I remember. I partially remember, but I'm told that I was like obsessed. I watched it a million times. And again, I'm embarrassed I didn't pick something from that for all those reasons. But this is a particularly cool shot because it's kind of the first time that you see it as like fully functional. Like we get a lot of shots of like as Kirk's flying up to it and before they get going out of dry dock, like they are right here, where the ship's not really complete yet. It's not fully lit. They got panels sticking out and stuff, which are really cool. Seeing the ship under construction, that it's not done yet and that they're still working on it. But this is kind of the ship in all its glory, getting ready to head out as a mostly finished product. Still issues to work out on the way. That they're going to run into, but it's gorgeous. It's the first time we really get a good look at the refit in its kind of final form. But you're right. There are dozens of shots between the dry dock fly up with Kirk and Scotty in the shuttle pod and the ship leaving dry dock here that you could choose. The ship is gorgeous. It's Star Trek. It's starship porn at its best. It's very lustful look. It's a lustful look at the ship at all angles, and it's definitely fertile ground for this kind of conversation. There's tons to choose from.
So moving on to kind of my last pick or picks is kind of a cheat, and this. There we go. These shots is kind of a cheat. I'm doing a bunch of shots. Are kind of the reason why I went into. Let's see. I'll bring one up here. I went into the field that I went into. I was watching these. It's the establishing shots of any show. On a planet. Specifically for me, it's just the Voyager flyby. that was the first thing that I saw, and I was like, I want to build starships for a living. Engineering wasn't really my thing, so I went into kind of the visual effects and graphic design field. Um, so that's it. That's why there's the shots, in each series. Next Generation. Um, I got a shot here from TOS, just over the planet with a great ship shot. I think to me this is the most iconic ship shot of these establishing shots over the planet.
Yeah.
It yeah, it's and to me,
Quintessential Star Trek.
yeah, it's quintessential Star Trek, and it seems so simple for establishing ship flyby or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But to me, it blew me away the first time I saw it, and it's kind of most of the time it's the first thing you see in the episode, and so that's why these shots are just so special to me and mean so much to me. So that's why I picked those as kind of my last pick. So
yeah, they're great, and that's no better reason to choose it than that it made a big impact on you personally. Mm. And I couldn't agree more that these are really memorable images. Just the standard ship shots that you see 100,000 times, and that's why, because you see them so much. It's like it's comforting to see the ship fly up to a planet or fly by. From TOS all the way through Enterprise, for sure. I think maybe we got a little less of it in Discovery, just like the standard like flyby shots.
Yeah.
But those base shows from the past really leaned heavily on that, and I can see why, because you got a lot of long looks at them, and you saw them so many times that I'm sure they definitely made a big impact on you.
Yeah.
Rob is here and is asking if anyone mentioned the Undiscovered Country, the scene at the end when the Enterprise and the Excelsior battle the bird of prey when the Enterprise goes straight on till morning. And no, we have not. No. But that's why we're glad you're here, because you just did. Yeah. We don't have that shot picked, I don't think. Yeah. I didn't. But that is a great choice. It's one of the many that that is going to get left off here because there are like 100 to choose from. Yeah. And he's also mentioning the DS9 pullout from the end of What's Behind. That's another great one. That it's so good, and the end of that episode will mess me up for days. So I'm ashamed that I didn't pick that, because that's a tough one to shake when you watch all of Deep Space Nine to get to the end of that show. That will screw you up. But that's a couple of really good picks there by Rob, who is here and welcome as always. Yeah. Yeah. Any more that you have here? For
nope. Those were my picks. So I think I had 5, including kind of overlaps with Bill. So
yeah. And I think I have one more, which is probably my favorite image in all. To be honest, like this would probably be if I had to pick one image in the entire history of Star Trek, this is probably the one I would go to my grave with. And it's not traditional. It's not a ship shot of any kind of standard kind of quality, but it's from Star Trek III, The Search for Spock, and it's the crew watching the Enterprise burn up in the Genesis planet's atmosphere. It is Leonard Nimoy flexing his muscles.
Yeah.
It definitely is something I've never. From a storytelling perspective, it tells you all you need to know. These guys are screwed by all accounts. Like they are going to have, they need a miracle to get out of this. Their ship is down, and it's the Enterprise, and it's especially in 1984, it's the only ship they've ever had. It's arguably like the real lead character of the show. Like it's about the Enterprise more than anything. And there it goes. It's gone. Unconceivable that Kirk would blow it up himself, but he was in a impossible situation and did what he had to do. The way that it's everything. It's the dialogue. It's the exchange between McCoy and Kirk. Kirk says, "My God, Bones, what have I done?" And McCoy says, "You did what you did what you always do. Turn death into a fighting chance to live." Like that sequence, the dialogue there is perfect. The image is perfect. It tells you all you need to know about their circumstances and how terrible they are and how uphill a battle they're going to have to fight to get out of this. It's emotional. It's at the climax of the movie, pretty much. Mm-hmm. it's all been building to this. Definitely a iconic Star Trek image in my mind.
Yep.
What do you think?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. And that's why I saved it for the end, because it has literally everything. It has, technically it is the ship shot because that
yeah
burning ball of flame is
that's
the ship.
Yeah.
It has a great set extension. The silhouette, it has great character moments. With the characters, they pretty much sacrifice everything, but they still have each other.
Yeah.
Just great silhouette. There's enough texture in. You can tell what this is, where they are. Great, beautiful sunset. As kind of this the sun is setting on the the life of the Enterprise. So yeah, and it's a great shot, and it has everything. That's why I saved it for the end. I think it's a perfect ending shot. I think it's perfect.
Yeah, I agree. It's got it all. It's got the visual, it's got the storytelling, it's got all the production elements surrounding it. It's got a great score over top of it. It's got great dialogue overlapping with it. It is, it's the quintessential Star Trek shot for me. And just what you just said about they still have each other is what Star Trek's all about.
Yep.
Like at the end of the day, it's about the ships and it's about the technology and it's about all that stuff, and that it leans heavily on that, and that's what makes Star Trek Star Trek. But Star Trek's about relationships and friendship and people being good to each other. And you're right, they still have each other, and that's how they get out of this. That's what they need at the end of the day. That's what's going to get them through it. They're going to go get Spock, and they're going to get the heck out of there. And yeah, it's Star Trek in a nutshell to me. Even without the Enterprise, they have a fighting chance to live because they have each other. So very well put as always. You snuck in with yet another Daniel special.
Yeah.
Great point.
Yeah.
Rob's coming in killing it with another great choice.
Yes.
He's talking about the end of the episode United in season 4 of Enterprise, where Shran and the Tellarites are shaking hands with Archer and T'Pol, and they pull back out of the window, and all the ships are there, and it's kind of like the breadcrumbs leading up to the forming of the Federation that's going to come down the road. And that is another great choice. And as a huge Enterprise fanboy, I'm ashamed that I pick it.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'm glad you're here to pick it yourself.
Yeah.
So that we could at least throw it out there as a good choice.
Yeah.
So if anybody in the chat has anything that we've kind of that you think deserves mentioning, now is definitely a good time because we're kind of out of choices now.
Yep.
We're out of images to share at least, but definitely interested to hear if you guys came in expecting to hear one that we didn't bring up, or if you have one in mind that you think is a classic image that needs to be mentioned. We definitely want to hear it. I can tell you right now, one that I wanted to pick that I felt like I had too many, and if I could have picked one more, I probably would have chosen the shot of the Klingon bird of prey coming down into Earth's atmosphere and going under the Golden Gate Bridge.
Great shot.
I love that shot. It's easy to lean on the movies for these. A lot of the movies have really great visual effects images and
much more cinematic than say just a regular 45-minute episode.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was one that I probably would have been, including if I could have kept going and wanted to keep going, but I had to stop somewhere. Yeah. And that was my last cut, I guess I could say. And the Undiscovered Country, like Rob was saying, has quite a few really good choices too. A lot of really good ship shots. I love the shot. It's of there's that shot of the torpedo coming up at the Enterprise and like blowing through the hull of the saucer section. That's one that I've never forgotten. I remember seeing that in the big screen and being like, oh my God. Like that was one that was a tough cut. Adam just watched Encounter at Farpoint last night, and he's saying the first shot of the Enterprise D.
Yeah.
That establishing shot, the first time you get a look at that ship.
Yeah.
Definitely a great pick. Memorable image. Establishes the whole show.
One tough one was for me. I couldn't find a picture of it. There's just a big sweeping shot as Captain Janeway and Harry Kim are like arguing across the bridge, and
yes,
I can't remember the name of the episode, But
The disease.
yeah, the disease. I just love it because we don't usually see those big, like crane or dolly shots
Yeah.
that like just flow across the whole shot of the bridge, and I just love that.
Yeah, I think I've mentioned that before a few times. That's an
Yeah.
episode that I'm not a huge fan of, but that's an episode that has that moment in like because it's so uniquely like cinematic.
Yeah.
It's something that era of Star Trek just didn't do, like these long tracking shots
Yeah.
through sets,
Yeah.
like walk and talk kind of stuff that TV was starting to do around that time, but Star Trek kind of shied away from it.
Mhm.
That really stands out when you watch that episode. That's clearly to me like a major highlight in an episode that doesn't always necessarily work.
Yeah.
That scene does, and a lot of it
Yeah.
is because of the technical nature of it and the wow factor because it's so not what we're used to.
Just watch that episode just for that shot.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
It's not a bad scene too, actually.
Yeah.
It's the definitely strongest moment in that episode.
Yeah.
Strongest sequence, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely agree. That's a good pick.
Mhm.
That's part of it too. It's kind of difficult. Like there are some like long shots, like these like long tracking shots, like in some of the movies and some of the newer stuff. That it's difficult to find a shot to like sell it as like this is why I picked it. And even like I guess the one that I picked that's kind of like that is the opening shot from First Contact, the pullback, the card in the cube.
Mhm.
Is one of those. Just trying to think of any others that I missed. Then I guess that DS9 pullout for What You Leave Behind is another one. That's it's really sold by the cumulative effect of the camera moving.
Yeah.
There are tons to choose from. A lot of the movies have good stuff. I love the shot in Generations of the Enterprise D and the Bird of Prey, like fighting in the orbit of the Viridian planet.
Yeah.
I like the visual effects in that movie a lot. And there's a couple shots of
the saucer.
Yep. There's some really cool stuff in that movie.
Yep.
Memorable images.
Mm-hmm.
Into Darkness. I've said before that I think Into Darkness a problematic movie on some levels, but I think it might be the most visually pleasing Star Trek anything, just color wise. Like it's colorful and there's a lot of vibrant stuff happening visually in it. And there's quite a few different things in that movie that I think you could just screen grab almost anything and go, wow, that's an image that just pops.
Yeah.
You know, the color of the tunics and kind of the bright lights on the sets, like everything's kind of brightly lit and highlighted really well. A lot of cool compositions.
Yeah.
From a visual effects, one last one that I'll throw out there, Kelvin thing. I'm thinking that anything from the going into Yorktown.
Oh yeah, so awesome.
There's that one like huge long shot of teeny tiny Enterprise, kind of like the first shot that we did from Impulse and Enterprise. Teeny tiny Enterprise up against the massive Yorktown globe that I think is really, really cool.
Yeah.
But we've definitely covered a lot of ground.
Yes, we have.
And I think we picked, what was it, maybe 12 or something total? I don't know, but 15
How many did
maybe?
you have? How many did you have?
I think did I do 10? I think I might have did 10.
Okay.
You had 5 or 6.
Yeah. So we did a lot of shots.
Yeah, we did. We covered a lot of ground, a lot of good stuff. And there's a lot, we talked about a lot that we didn't choose and have images of that you guys were throwing out there. So I appreciate all of you in the chat. You know, Rob, Adam, Prince Salem, Jordan, everybody who's in here. You all threw out good ideas.
Yep.
We certainly appreciate your feedback. But yeah, like always, you know, Dan's going to give a spiel at the end about the conversation not needing to stop here. But as always, we're all game, and share your shots on Twitter. Send us images from Trek Core or wherever you get your images. And, tell us which ones you love and you think we missed.
Yeah. Yes. I guess, we can start winding down. As far as like Star Trek content, there's going to be Discovery shorts coming out soon. I'll mention that as content. We didn't kind of talk about that or give our thoughts. But you guys we're going to have a lot of coverage on those shorts. And then as Discovery rolls around, in future non-Discovery episodes also. Bill said it, the discussion doesn't have to stop here. Come over to Twitter. We'll probably be posting some shots, maybe in the Discord chat too, if you guys want to kind of finish off there.
Absolutely.
It'd be fun. Yeah.
Yeah, Adam's just throwing out. He's kind of echoing some of your sentiments, I think, about like just the specific shots of the Enterprise and TNG episodes. Yeah, there are a lot, and he's talking about like episodes like 11001001, where they have the ship going into dry dock.
Oh, great
like
shot!
The mushroom. There's some really cool stuff where they were really creative with adapting stock footage to work instead of, but yeah, I totally echo. Just kind of hammer home your point. Wrap up about the standard ship shots, establishing shots that we get 100 times. They are some of the best stuff. The image that you threw up there of the Enterprise in orbit of the planet is like, yeah, that's Star Trek in a nutshell.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, that's Star Trek.
Yeah.
So all that stuff is really good too.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we get a short trek on Thursday.
Yes.
Yeah, first Thursday of every month, starting this week. So next week, I'm sure we'll be talking about that. I feel terrible for Rob and anybody else in the States. Apparently, you guys are not getting them. It's horrible. Yeah, I would never want to. Yeah, I'm not even going to go there. There are, I'm sure, ways, perhaps.
A CBS exec, but
but yeah, that's definitely a shame, and I hope somehow, some way, someday, you get to see it, Rob.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely looking forward to that. New Trek, good, and I didn't expect last week when they released that trailer that we'd be getting one so soon.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll be talking about it this weekend coming up.
Yeah.
But yeah. Have you listened to any Star Trek podcasts? Any content? Anything you want to throw out there?
Nope. I got
not so much.
Bunch of stuff to catch up on. Trek ranks, bunch of Trek ranks. Yeah.
Their most recent episode, I guess they just released one like today or yesterday, but I listened to the Jeffrey's Tube scenes, Trek ranks, and that is awesome. Definitely recommend that. That was a really cool discussion. A lot of cool picks.
Yeah.
We kind of got to preview that on our episode, didn't we?
Yeah.
I think he was announcing it, and we got to throw quick picks. And you picked. Didn't you pick someone to watch over me?
Yeah, someone to watch over me.
Yeah, which is really cool. I love that. Yeah, so that was really cool. I definitely recommend that to it. You never knew how many great Star Trek scenes took place in the Jeffrey's Tube. So, varied scenes, all kinds of stuff happening. But yeah, I other than that can't remember specifically. I was just on vacation. Can't say I listened to a whole lot of podcasts while I was away. So I'm embarrassed to say that's about all I have for now. Yeah. Hopefully next time I'll have more to share.
Yes. Yeah. Should be back next week. Still not sure what we're gonna do as far as topic wise. We got a bunch of in the works. So we'll be releasing throughout the week what we're gonna be talking about. Yeah. That being said, the discussion doesn't have to stop here. You guys know where to find us: Facebook, Twitter, all that jazz. We'll see you guys next week for episode 64 of Trek Live.
64.
Yep. We'll talk to you guys later. Thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching, everybody.